Hi, I'm Larry Puckett, the DCC guy. Now, as I said on Friday, we're going to take a look today at how I built the passenger platforms for the station on the modules that we worked on last year. Now, if you remember back when I first started that project, I put forward two track plans, a UK track plan and a US track plan. Well, I decided to go ahead and build the UK version of the track plan, and I'm using UK prototype structures. Now, in some cases, like the gasworks, they look pretty much the same, no matter whether you're in the UK or in the US. And they were widely used throughout the US and the UK and the rest of the world for the better part of a century or more. The station platforms that I'm going to be showing you are a little bit different than what was used in the US, because in the UK they were typically set at a high enough level so that passengers could disembark directly from a coach onto the platform, and they could just step right into the coach from the platform. So they were, something like about 3 feet above track level, something like that. And it varied depending on the railway that built them. Although these are based on a UK prototype, there were some platforms in the US that were built like this, a little bit higher. And also the methods that I'm going to be using for constructing and also for painting and weathering these platforms can be used for just about any kind of structure that you're building out of either brick or stone. So I think no matter whether you're a US modeler or a UK modeler or some other country around the world, you can use these techniques. So let's go ahead and get started and take a look at how I went about building these platforms here on the module for the station at Teignbury. I've gone ahead and zoomed in here onto the top of the workbench so we can take a look at what went into making my platforms. So first I started with the Pico 290, 291 platform kit, fairly standard run-of-the-mill Pico product. And let me get out one of these platform edges. So it comes with these platform edges and the platform material itself that just clip right on here to these raised nipples on the bottom of the platform material. So that clips on, and what I did was they come in this asphalt gray color. So I painted all of mine a nice sandstone color because on the GWR, the Great Western Railway, platforms typically varied over time. They started out with a lot of packed gravel on some of them, and either brick pavers or rock, or in some cases these large, what are called Victorian pavers by Pico, I believe. And in some cases you might have brick replacing that, or cut stone, cobbles, that type of thing. Or you might have packed gravel or asphalt, tarmac, right up around the station itself. So with these pavers, and these came in a Wills kit, Pico Wills kit for their country station, and that's what I'll be using here. And they provide you, I think, 7 of these sections to use for the entire platform in front of this station. I decided to do it a slightly different way, and I'll show you that in a minute. But at any rate, so I used these this section of pavers. I used 6 out of the 7 that are provided in the kit. And I'll show you in a minute how I put that together. Now, these kits come with these transfers. These are a printed design here. They are brick or cut stone, and they're flat. They're not textured at all. They're just printed material, and then they have a peel away so that you can stick these to the front edge of the platform material. This platform material. Well, I really didn't like that. I wanted something with a little bit of raised texture. So I went down to my local hobby shop and checked out the Plastric display, and what I found was this textured plasticard material, and it's Plastruck 91580, which is O-scale random coursed stone. So that's what I wanted to use. So I just simply took that and cut out strips, and these strips are scale 42 feet long, and that's 00 scale. And I cut them, I think it's 15 millimeters from here to here. So I wanted to cut them so that they're going to fit underneath the lip of the platform edge. Okay, so I just cut those out and glued them directly to the front edge of the platform using Plastruck cement. Any liquid cement would work, and if you don't have Plastruck at your local hobby shop or available online in the UK, I'm sure there's other makers of plastic hard textured material like this one, or you can use Metcalf type textured card and glue that to the front of it. Or you can just use these, if you like it, you can just use these printed materials. So in this case, what I did was I took these pieces of platform edging and I sprayed them with a Krylon paint. And if you don't have Krylon in the UK, any kind of matte gray will work, primer gray, whatever. You just want some innocuous gray, light gray color, or dark gray, depending on what you decide you want to use for your base color for your platforms. And once I had glued on the textured plastic to the front here, I just sprayed everything with that gray color and gave it all a good even coat. And I'll show you how I'm going to weather that from there. Okay, so let's set that aside. And so this is what it looked like sort of after the initial spray paint. And I've already applied a little bit of an India ink wash. I make a wash using alcohol. But at any rate, you want to use an India ink because you want to get the particles. And India ink is made with, particles, whereas more modern inks are made with dyes. So you want to get an India ink so it's suspended in your alcohol. So I've got everything sprayed a nice light gray, and I'll show you that here. Okay, you can see that with the plastic card attached, sprayed a very light gray that I just showed you. Now, the other thing that I've done here is using that material provided by in the Wills kit, I went ahead and I sprayed all of these with another Krylon paint. And let me show you that one. Now this one is a sandy color. I like it because it's very nice, represents sandstone, concrete, all kinds of things. And it's called Matte Sand Dollar. And I use that a lot for those types of modeling projects. But at any rate, what I did was I just took these pieces of Wills material, and these are available, I think, individually in separate packs from Wills. So I just went ahead and glued these to the top of the platforms instead of using the original material supplied in the Pico kit. And using a liquid styrene cement, again, Plastruck, but any liquid styrene cement that you can pick up in the UK is going to work just as well as this. I also ran a line here joining these three separate pieces together. Okay, so I've got those on there. I've installed the three platform edges, connected them together, and glued them together. So at this point, let's go ahead and take a look at how I go about weathering the faces of these platforms. So as I said, I just sprayed the front edge of these platforms with this, light gray color, and then built this up. And then I have my India ink wash here. So I just take that and dip my brush into it. And I use a brush that's about half an inch thick, something like that. A little bit better. Okay, so I'm just going to dip my brush in there and pull some out, and then go ahead and run it along the edge here. And just let it fill in those mortar lines. So you can see how it makes it pop right away. Okay, so let me go ahead. We'll do this whole area. So these are a pair of pieces of platform that have been treated with my black alcohol wash. So you can see there's only a small discoloration compared to the original color. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a couple of different washes from Vallejo. I have one here called Oiled Earth and the other called European Dust. So I use both of these in this case to give me some color and a little bit more variety to the platforms. So let's start. I'm going to go ahead and start with the European Dust. I'm going to be a bad boy and dip my brush right in here and working. I'm going to turn these so I can see them towards me. And then I'm just going to work this in here at different places along the platform here. And I'll do another one. I'm just going to get it spotty around on the platform. Okay, so that one's ready. I'll let those sit a second. And I'm going to shake my Oiled Earth from Vallejo and use that. It's a little bit darker color. And it's supposed to look like earth that has been fouled with gasoline and oil and that kind of thing, and grease. So it's the type of thing you would expect to see along a platform like this. Okay, and then I'm going to bring that in here and add another layer of color to the mix. And you notice I'm spotting this around to give it a little bit more randomness. So we'll put it in here in areas that aren't covered already. And then I'm just basically, we're going to be mixing this together. Okay, so I've got two of those there. And now I'm going to let that dry just a second and get ready. And what I have here, this is just plain old alcohol. Now, let's go back to that first one, because what I want to do with that is apply the alcohol over it. And you'll notice that they don't mix too well. And what happens is the alcohol, for some reason, I don't know what Vallejo is using, but these guys do not mix too well. And so the result is that the pigment from the Vallejo tends to end up down in the mortar lines more than up on the ridge or up on the raised areas. I'm also working it down here towards the bottom some because, you know, you want a lot more buildup down in the lower portions of this. Okay, so that's pretty much what I wanted, the effect that I'm trying to achieve there. Getting them down towards the bottom and also filling up these lines. Now, one thing you'll note, you can just run your brush across here and it's going to lighten up the surface of some of these stones. So you can use that to your advantage to create darker areas and lighter areas here on the stone platform. And this will work, of course, with brick as well. Okay, let me set that one down, and we'll go ahead and work this one. And once again, it's already been treated with our Vallejo washes. So I'm just going to move that in there and let that pigment from the Vallejo wash settle down in these crevices and get it to move down here and flow down towards the bottom layer, because that's where the most grit and grime and oil and grease is going to appear, further down towards the bottom here. So you can see, let me bring this in just a little bit. And you can see how that is making that pop out. So it gives a lot more definition to the texture. And as it dries, this is what it starts to look like. This is one we did just a second ago. So you can already see the nice way that it makes those individual stone blocks pop out. And again, this is one that was done yesterday. And you can see everything is set in there. We've got some nice color variations, a build up down towards the bottom, which is what I was going for. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish doing the front of all of the platforms. And don't forget, you want to do the upper edge of the platform as well. And later, I'm going to go ahead and do the top of the full platform, but I'm going to wait until I've got the other pieces of the paving materials glued in place and attached in the way that I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, I've gone ahead and connected all of the different pieces of the platform together to create this very long and fairly narrow platform. This is going to be for the platform across from the station. And what I wanted to show you about this, there's a couple of things. I mean, I just connected the sections together the way that they're designed to be fitted here. So there's nothing special about that. What I have done here is gone ahead and camouflage the joints. And the way I did that, I took some of this plastic texture material, the plastic card, and I painted it gray just like everything else here. And then I cut these so that they're a scale 2 feet across. Okay, and then I just glued them to the face of the platform here, so that it covers that single line gap here where the two pieces are joined. And what that's going to do, or what it does, or what I wanted it to do anyway, was to first camouflage the seam, but in the process, of course, it creates two seams. However, because it stands out and has a little bit of a 3D effect, it gives the appearance of a column that has been built in here at regular intervals as a support for the platform itself. So that's just a quick way to camouflage that. You know, another way is to put a bush or a vine or something growing there. But I decided to try this method, and I've been pretty happy with it. Now, another thing you'll note here, I've got this bump out built in here. Now, the reason for that is I wanted to have a structure where the passengers could get out of the rain. I went ahead and built one of these Pico Pagoda shelters, and these are something that were very, very common on GWR station platforms. They were very often used for the passenger shelters on halts, and they could also be seen for other things such as storage buildings located on the main platform. And in this case, I'm going to be using it here as a shelter on the secondary platform across from the main station. So it's made just to sit right here, and all I did was cut the platform originally the way it was so that I had that bump out left in place, and then I just put in a couple of pieces of the styrene sheet right here on the ends and glued those in and weathered them accordingly. And it gives a good appearance. Now, another thing I treated these 2-foot columns here the way I did everything else, and then I added a little bit darker area on the sides of these, and also here in the corners of the shelter support. And I just, wanted to make it look like, dirt and grease and grime was accumulating in these areas here where there'd be a little bit of shelter, and they wouldn't be as likely to get washed off by the regular rains. So that's how I did that. Okay, so we'll get to this in a minute because there's a lot more to do with this, because I wanted to give the top of the platforms the appearance of gravel, packed gravel, because as I said in the opening, that was, one of the very common ways that they finished these platform areas. Now I could have just left it just like this. This is the original, this is the way I painted it, and then I just weathered it a little bit with my India ink wash here. And it doesn't look too bad. It's some pretty good relief there from the Pico casting. But I wanted something that was going to be a little bit more realistic. So let me show you what I've got, and then we'll go about how I did it. Okay, so this is the larger platform from over at the by the station. And this one was treated in the same fashion. Let me show you. And this one was treated in the same fashion. You can see I've got the little column support there added. And then you'll notice that the surface here, it looks a little bit duller and I think a little bit more realistic. And what I did was I coated this with a layer of pumice, which is finely ground volcanic rock, and you can get that fairly easily. I mean, you can get finely ground sand and other materials from companies like Woodland Scenics and others that make those kinds of materials. This particular stuff, though, is finely ground pumice, and what I got was a lifetime supply. Need to go back out to show you this, in the form of chinchilla bath dust. So it's just a very finely ground powdered pumice that you can get at pet shops. I ordered this off of Amazon, and it is a very fine dust-like material. And so I'm going to show you how I went about applying that here to the top of the platform. Okay, so what I've done now is I've just taped the edges of the platform with this low-tack painter's tape. And I'm going to spray this whole platform one more time. And then I'm going to immediately bring it back in here and set it up here on the top of the bench. And we'll go ahead and dust it with the chinchilla dust, the pumice, and that's going to set it in place. And I have my, my brush handy here to do some work with. I've also got my roller, and I can roll that on. And what I want to do is press the pumice down into the fresh paint and get that, you know, a nice layer all the way the length of the platform. And we'll get that set in place. Okay, before this dries, I need to go ahead and dust on this layer of pumice. You can see it's about the same color as the paint that I'm using here. Now I've got my brush. I'm just going to work it around, make sure that we've got it all in the, work that down into the fresh paint. And now, just to be doubly sure, I'm going to take my roller and I'm going to roll the whole thing. I think that's done it. Okay, now I'm going to just lightly knock the excess off using this brush. Okay, so that's cleaned off the excess. Now, in order to fix this permanently in place, I have a spray can of matte fixative, and I'll show you that in a minute. I'm going to go back out into the driveway and knock off the rest of the loose dust, and we'll go ahead and I'll spray that out there. Okay, I've got it sprayed, and here's what I used. It's another Krylon product. It's Krylon Matte Finish 1311. I'm not sure if this is a lacquer or what, but it dries to a nice matte finish once it's finished. So now let's go ahead and lift off the tape. Okay, so there it is with the chinchilla dust pumice layer in place. But the nice thing I like about this is it helps bring out a little bit of that grittiness to the platform, as you would expect, you know, if it was a fine packed gravel surface. The next thing I want to work on is this large section of cut stone pavers that go in here in front of or underneath of the station itself. And like I said, I've got 3 of those already attached to the front of the platform, and then I've got 3 more sitting here in the back to be added on. Now I'm going to move these out of the way because they will go on later. Now what I want to do, and you'll notice I've got a 3/4 inch piece of plywood here. That's going to be the platform base. And coincidentally, that gives it a perfect height when it's placed on the layout at the surface, and I'll show you that later. And the reason that that works out so well is because I put the track on a cork roadbed, so this has to be elevated accordingly, and it just works out that a 3/4 inch thick piece of wood brings it up to the perfect height of the locomotives and the passenger cars. So let's go ahead. What I'm going to do here is take this and put it here, and then I have my liquid nails for projects, which is a product we get here in the U.S. Now, it's a plastic compatible indoor construction adhesive, and it works very well. It holds very, very well. So what I'm just going to do is put a line of that here. Okay, so I went ahead, I made a mark for where I want the platform to be. So I can go ahead and take a knife, putty knife really, and just apply this in a nice, long, straight, even line. Now I can go ahead and just flip this over and drop it into place here on the platform. So that has it down in place, so I'm going to flip it over and just give it a good press, good firm press down here so that we get very, very good adhesion. So at this point I had everything ready to go into place for the platforms. And I've already installed these 3 sections here in the background. In order to get everything at the right height, these were all measured out in advance, and I ended up having to increase the height just a bit because I used the cork roadbed here for my track, and that raises everything up a bit. So in order to get the Pico platforms up to the same height as this this section here, and to match the height of the rails, I used this rolled cork material here. It is looks like it 0.093 inches, 2.4 millimeters in thickness. For adhesive, I again use liquid nails for projects, construction adhesive, and it works great, forms a good, strong, permanent bond here. And as you can see, these things aren't going anywhere. So basically, I put a layer of construction adhesive down, then applied the foam. Then I applied the adhesive to these little pads here on the bottom of the platform itself, and then weighed it down. Now, as far as the placement of the edges of the platform relative to the track, a friend of mine in Wales checked around, and he calculated that this distance between the outer edge of this rail here and the face of the platform should be about 15 to 16 millimeters to give you a proper placement. So I just cut out sections of foam like this here to exactly 15 millimeters in width, and then I just slide that in here like so when I'm putting this in place to serve as a guide in order to keep the proper spacing. And once everything is glued down, then these can be just popped out and we're ready to go. So let's go ahead. All I'm doing is taking a coffee stir that I got at a coffee shop, and we're just going to smear some of this adhesive on these cross pieces here that Pico has provided. I'm going to go ahead and do these, and we'll start up again once I finish. As you can see, I've applied adhesive to all the little pads and various areas along the length of this platform, which built up to about 3 foot in length, so it's a little unwieldy. So let me go ahead and flip it over, and we'll slide it into place now. Okay, so now I've got my little spacers to apply. Let me save that up there. And we'll slide it in place, just so that we get the exact spacing on the platform that we need, or desire anyway. Now, in order to hold it all in place while it's setting, I'm going to put those on it. And then I have my water jugs. So these are just a 1 gallon jug filled with water, which does a great job of flattening this platform while it is drying and the glue is setting up. Because one of the problems with these Pico platforms is they tend to bow upwards. Let's go ahead. I'm going to give that at least 24 hours to set up good and hard, and we'll be back and take another look at the final set of platforms. Okay, I thought I'd give you a final look here at the platforms. As you can see, they are firmly fixed in place now that the liquid nails for projects has set up. They're not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Unlike the US, where the platforms were generally located barely above ground level, over there they were about 3 feet up, so that you could just step right in or step right out of the coach itself. Over on this other side, let me get this out of the way, the platform is ready for the station once I get that built and installed. And then we have a dock here where this is a horse car where horses could be unloaded. You could bring in a milk wagon to load the churns of milk to go in for processing, things of that nature. Now that I have the platforms in, I can go ahead and start building up this scenery here, ballast the track here, the main line, so I can get that underway. And a lot of things now that I've got these done can start to come together. Well, that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you got some useful information, some good tips out of the presentation that I just gave you on building those platforms for Teignbury, and also, more importantly, the weathering, the painting and the weathering of the stone itself. And I think this is something that, as I said earlier, anybody modeling anything out of brick or stone can use these techniques and apply them to structures that they're building. So give that a try on your next project on your model railroad, and come on back on Friday for another video from the DCC Guide. Bye now.